Welcome to the MLB This Week Show. It's the All-Star 86th edition of the Summer Classic Special Edition. And hello, everyone. Welcome to MLB This Week. It's the MLB This Week Show and our 86th All-Star Game special broadcast. My name is Rich.
And I'm Gary.
And hello, Gary. 86 All-Star Games. How are you pumped up about this one?
Sure.
Of course. I don't get pumped up too much about other All-Star games like the hockey one and the basketball one. Even the football All-Star game is not quite, it doesn't quite do it to me like the baseball All-Star game.
Well, I do agree there. We're baseball guys, Rich, so I guess that's why. And it's probably the more successful of all the other ones, though. Basketball does very well. Football, forget it. That's like a waste. They could really stop that, and I don't think anybody would miss it. Basketball is pretty cool. Hockey's pretty good, but baseball is just something about it. And I think it's the summer classic. You know, it's traditionally the halfway point, roughly, and I don't know. It's just something they just do that well. We'll see, though. This year was a little confusing but maybe because I was my mind was still on vacation. So when everybody came out, it was kind of I couldn't figure out who was going where. And I'm looking forward to it and checking it out.
Yeah, it's a game that sort of has a meaning now since, of course, 2003 when they made the winner get home field advantage in the World Series. And as you said, Gary, I think they do a great job with the MLB All-Star game, almost a little bit as good as they do with the World Series. I think they play up this game even better than that most of the time.
Yeah, and you know, it's kind of tough in a way, I guess, because it is a slower game, so it's hard to build a lot of excitement for it. And of course, you know, they're trying a new way of doing the home run derby yet again this year. But it's a good break for the players. It's a good break, though my Mets are red hot now, and I hate to see them break. But that's the way it goes sometimes.
That's for sure. And, of course, with the fan fests that they have at the All-Star Games, that's always a fun part for the fans. It started on Friday and runs right through Tuesday leading up to the All-Star Game. They have it at Cincinnati's Duke Energy Convention Center. Runs pretty well all day, and it's a great chance for fans to pick up some memorabilia, things like that. And as you said, Gary, Sunday night will be actually Sunday was the Futures game, the All-Star Futures game that they play each year now. And the USA won 10-1 over the world players. These are a group of players that are all potentially future major league players, but gives everyone a chance to see them before they make the big leagues.
Yeah, it certainly does. And if I may just say that Michael Conforto of the Binghamton Mets and formerly of the Brooklyn Cyclones and a Mets prospect was 2 for 2 and threw a guy out at home. So there's a lot of clamor to bring him up for the Mets fans, but he had a good outing there, and yeah, that's a pretty good game. It was Raul Mondesi's son was playing Raul Jr., and he looks like a fine shortstop there. He's got some arm and looks like a good ball player. So lots of, it's interesting. It's pretty neat to see these young guys, and I know that they have the different leagues have their own all-star games, but this just kind of adds to it when they're playing on the big stage and in the same field as the regular All-Stars are playing, and very interesting. I think the timing of it confused me a little because there's still ball games going on, the regular games, so I couldn't really watch the beginning of it, and I think they have to do something a little bit with that. Maybe they shouldn't play a night game on ESPN, but have the Futures game at night. I don't know.
That might be a good idea. Yeah, because like you said, that the season's still going on. It's a little confusing sometimes, but I guess with the scheduling around the All-Star game, of course, tomorrow night, Monday night is the Home Run Derby, and as you said, Gary, they've been tweaking the Home Run Derby a little bit here and there over the years, and it looks like they've come down to a more manageable type of head-to-head type schedule this year. It seems like in former years, I've lost interest after about 45 minutes of the broadcast of that.
I'm with you, Rich. It's very time-consuming, and no offense, but Chris Berman kind of grates on me after a while. So this is more timed event, and I think it'll be better for everyone.
Yeah, and as you said, you can stand about a half hour to 45 minutes of the back, but after after that, you're like, okay, that's enough. But one important note: Mike Trout elected to stay out of this home run derby. He elected to watch his teammate Albert Pujols, and he's rooting for him in the derby. But we have some newcomers as well. Cubs phenom has joined in on this one, and a couple of others. Even a hometown Cincinnati Red is going to be batting, so should be pretty interesting on Monday night at 8 p.m. at the Great American Ballpark. I'm going to view this year.
Yeah, and that's a ballpark that's I don't think I'm being derogatory by saying it's a bandbox. I mean, it's known for being very small, and should be a lot. I'm hoping or thinking it's going to be a lot of home runs going out of there. So, and there's some big names to watch still. I mean, you've got as you say, Todd Frazier, the hometown boy, and Prince Fielder's back, and Albert Pujols is going to be in it, and Chris Bryant, as you said, and Anthony Rizzo of the Cubs also going to be there, and Jock Peterson and Josh Donaldson. So there's some big names in it, and should be interesting. Now, have they named a starter yet for the pitching for either team yet?
If they have, I haven't seen it yet. I've been just hearing about some late replacements as of today, actually. Clayton Kershaw was added to the roster, replacing Max Scherzer, who started for the Nationals today on Sunday afternoon. He got the win today for the Nationals, so he won't be able to pitch during the All-Star game, but he will be there. But they nominated Clayton Kershaw to take his spot on the roster because he will actually be able to pitch. Ryan Braun named as well today to the All-Star game, replacing injured Cardinals outfielder Matt Holliday. Of course, Braun was suspended in 2013 for MLB's performance-enhancing drugs policy. So here we go again, a little controversy interjected into the game. He wasn't voted in by the fans.
Yeah, well, Holiday was, and then once he got hurt, I guess, then it's up to the manager to do what they wish, and they went with Braun. So I don't really have a problem with it, to be honest. I noticed, I guess, conspicuous by his absence for the American League is Alex Rodriguez, who's actually having a pretty good year, but didn't get voted in, wasn't named. So I don't know. I guess you always got to have some kind of controversy, but this is really kind of a quiet one.
Yeah, as far as controversies go, yes, it is. the first real logo for the All-Star Game was made in 1952. It was a game held in Philadelphia, believe it or not. Of course, the logo this year features Mr. Redlegs in it. And that's one thing I always look forward to every year, believe it or not, Gary. I don't know if you do, but the logo for the All-Star Game, they usually do a great job with that.
Yeah, they usually do, and it's a pretty cool logo, and they got the mustache in there and all kinds of stuff. The interesting thing is now, in this world we're in now, Rich, it's all about advertising and marketing, and of course the big thing is the hats that they wear for the home run derby as well. And I gotta say that I think they kind of blew it. They kind of went halfway for the old pillbox look, but they didn't go far enough, I don't think, and they really look kind of funky.
Yeah, I was looking at them late this afternoon. First time I saw them was this afternoon, and I was thinking the same thing. I'm not big on stripes going across the hat. Some of them look good. I'm not sure who is going to wear certain hats. There was a couple seemed like alternate type of caps that I saw on the MLB New Era website for the caps. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of that design for sure.
See, and the thing I don't understand is they do the whole uniform thing in the hats for the home run derby and the other festivities that they have, but then they wear their own uniforms for the regular game. I would just let them wear a National League and an American League jersey for the games. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
I think there's nothing wrong with that. It more would be like a team type of event to where everybody have their own jersey. Are you saying wear their own team's jersey or?
No, that's what they do now. But if you notice the futures, they all had World and USA jerseys. They had, they had, and I think that's what they should do. They should have when they have the batting practice. I mean, the home run derby and stuff. They have the National League. They have a National League jersey, and they have an American League jersey. So why not wear that for the game?
Yeah, they should really do that to solidify them being on the same team rather than breaking them up, and you get a better look to the game as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something that they should consider going forward, and it would add to the marketing of it even more.
Yeah, and I just checked the starting lineups for Tuesday night's game. Of course, the broadcast starts at 7 p.m. on Fox. First pitch is 8:15 p.m. in the East. But so far, they're holding back on the pitching matchup. The starters apparently have not been announced, according to ESPN here where I'm looking at. But I'm sure they'll do that probably tomorrow in some fanfare. They'll probably try to, get us interested more in the game.
Maybe before the home run derby or something, they'll announce it.
Probably. I forget exactly when they generally do that, but yeah, as of right now, there's no official starter listed for either team. So, be interesting to see who gets the starts on this game. Of course, in Cincinnati, it's the 5th time that they've hosted the All-Star Game. They've hosted it in 1938, 53, 1970. Of course, that was a memorable game. Pete Rose barreled down third base line in the 12th inning for a 5-4 victory, bowled over Ray Fosse at home. So that's going to get a lot of airplay on the night of the game, I'm sure. An exciting play there, and you don't see that anymore in baseball, Gary.
Can't.
You can't bowl over the catcher anymore.
Can't do it anymore. And Rich, just a second, here's the Phillies hat, the All-Star cap, and I don't know if they were going for a quasi pillbox, like the old Pirates when in the 70s when they wore those hats. They should have went for the whole flat top, the whole 9 yards. Go for it. That would have looked sharp, I think, because it's in Cincinnati, and the Red Legs were the first team, and I think that's what they were going for. But I don't know. This look doesn't send me at all. Sorry.
Yeah, it wouldn't be something that I would want to purchase. I don't know if I'd wear it if it was free even.
Well, maybe if it was free.
But yeah, I share your sentiment on that. Yeah, not very good. There are some other designs for different teams that are more solid of a color that I saw. They're pretty nice. But some of the controversy of the game, read an article this afternoon, American League fan writing that the All-Star games have all been a National League affair in the past couple of years. So the writer was complaining that the American League hasn't been getting the game often enough. Of course, next year it's in San Diego at Petco Park. 2017 it remains with the National League. They're at Marlins Park in Miami. And even 2018, Gary, the game travels down to Washington Nationals Park. So, a little paybacks there are in order, so says this writer for the American League.
Well, but aren't they gonna? I think next year the American League's gonna be the hometown team anyway.
Yeah, they'll technically be the hometown team, but
so they're not. I think you have to, as a team, request to have it in your stadium, and if the teams aren't interested in having it and requesting it, then they got to have it somewhere. So if it's a National League team requests it, they're going to go there. There was talk earlier in the year, and I guess they'll talk about it again, is making a bidding process much like the Super Bowl is. So you would still have this kind of possibility instead of National and American. But I don't know. I kind of like it the old way, I guess, where it was National American, and I think they should go back to that. But again, if a town doesn't want it or a team doesn't want it in their stadium, there's not much else you can do with it. And I guess part of the problem is that a lot of these stadiums are owned by the cities or are owned in conjunction, and maybe they just don't want to put out the kind of money for, it is a lot. I mean, you do have to have, as you said, the Fan Fest and all of that. That occupies time. I'm sure a city gets paid for all of that, but maybe it's not quite enough, and they don't want to do it.
That could be the reason. Of course, a lot of Major League teams still vying for this game. Of course, Citi Field there just held it in 2013, brand new stadium. But Philadelphia had a brand new stadium now some years ago. They didn't get it, so I'm sure they're probably trying to get back on the list, and a few other teams as well trying to host this game. So be interesting to see when they name the 2019 stadium. Probably sure it's going to be an American League team somewhere.
I would imagine that they would try to do it if it's at all possible. But again, if there's no team that really wants it, we'll see.
That's it. National League leading the series so far in this first All-Star game played way back in 1933 at Comiskey Park. Lefty Gomez was the AL starter back then, and a guy named Hallahan was the starter, Bill Hallahan, for the National League. And here's a couple old names for you, Gary, the managers back then, Connie Mack and John McGraw.
Wow.
Sounds like some history.
I'll tell you, those two of the greats of all time managing that game, boy.
And another interesting note, the only time the All-Star game was not played was 1945. Of course, not played because of World War II. So many of the players were in the Army and Navy. They just didn't want to hold this game.
Well, that's very interesting as well. So yeah, that's true. There was a bunch of guys in the 40s that went. Bob Feller, Ted Williams, oh my gosh, Hank Greenberg. How many others that lost a couple of years in service? So um, it really is kind of mind blowing in a way if you think about it. When some of these big names, the numbers that they could have put up. I mean, Ted Williams lost, I think, 6 or 8 years in military because he went back for the Korean War.
It's
So,
amazing.
yeah, he was a jet fighter pilot, and he lost 6 years of his career. And Willie Mays lost 2 because in those days they had to go in to the Army, or they didn't necessarily fight, but they had to go. And I mean, Joe DiMaggio, Yogi Berra was at D-Day. So many guys, and the sport survived, and I think it was the St. Louis Browns. I forget the exact year. It was the only year they won a pennant when they were in St. Louis as the Browns. And I think they won the World Series that year, and it was a year of the war with a lot of people gone. So they were able to sneak in and win it. And of course, they moved to Baltimore, became the Orioles in the 50s. So, but so much history in this game and in this All-Star game, as you say, and Rich.
Yes, it is. Of course, this year, we've been talking about it on our show here, MLB This Week, the podcast, independent show. Gary, more than 30 All-Star players will be heading to Cincinnati for their first game. So that's a little indication on how the game has changed this year. Brand new All-Stars, more than 30 of them reporting to their first game this year.
And that's what's good about the game. It refreshes refreshes it all the time, and you get to see these new stars, and there'll be some old stars that are there, but nice to see the new guys, and we are having, we spoke about this, about the amount of prospects that I couldn't recall ever hearing this many top prospects from teams coming up in a season, and this year seems to be a lot of them. And I guess that goes right along with this. We're going to see these new guys, and it's refreshing. It's a refreshment of the game, if you will, and that's always great to see.
Yes, it is. National League has a ways to catch up. Of course, the last 2 All-Star games have been American League victories, with the American League taking it 5-3 in 2014. And they blanked the National League 3-0 in 2013. Of course, last year's MVP was Mike Trout, and we'll see if maybe he can do it again this year. Gary, guy's on fire.
He's hot, and don't see why not he couldn't. But as you say, it'll be interesting to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of these new guys in, as you say, like Jose Altuve. He was there last year, but I like to see the young guys. Mike Trout, of course, always a pleasure to see him play.
Mm-hmm.
He's a terrific talent, and the pitching's hard because they keep moving him in and out, and some guys that made the team aren't going to be there because of they pitched today. So it's going to be fascinating to see. Like you say, a lot of these young guys, and of course there's been some changes. You were stating that earlier. D. Gordon dislocated his finger, so he's out now.
Mm-hmm.
National League, and Matt Holliday's out. Giancarlo Stanton is out. That's the kind of thing that really kind of hurts the team now, because those guys were hot, and you want to see Stanton, where you want him to get a hit instead of against the Mets or the Phillies when we don't want them to get.
Exactly. Troy Tulowitzki taking the place of D. Gordon. And as you said, Gary, with a 34-player roster for each team, every injury becomes a scramble to get a replacement in. So right up to the last minute, you're going to have replacements named to this game because they need the players there. As much as the game is played, they shuffle them in and out all game long. So, yeah, it's interesting how they need to fill these rosters right up to the last minute. So a lot of guys think they have that 4-day holiday coming up, and they have the call to the All-Star game. I think I'd rather go to the All-Star game than home if I was a baseball player.
I think it's one thing that, as a baseball player, you have to do once in your lifetime, at least. I could see if you're getting it every year, could kind of grate on you, but I think once you have to go. And of course, I'm looking to see how Jacob deGrom, the Mets' lone representative this year, does, and whether or not he gets in. There were some rumors that he may start because he would have enough days off, but I don't know. I kind of think that it could be Greinke or Cole or Kershaw. Any of those guys would probably get the call before him, but you never know. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. McCutcheon's on the team again, and like watching him play as well. So going to be fascinating. It should be an interesting game to see.
Yes, it should. And of course, one of the sidelines of the game and the whole Cincinnati experience, so to speak, has been Pete Rose. And this is the first time that Pete Rose have been allowed back into baseball, with quotations around that. He's playing a minor role in this All-Star game festivities, but he's still there, so that's a good thing. Last night he was at the Taft Theater in Cincinnati. He did a 90-minute demonstration on stage with questions being fielded to him. And Gary, he did the whole show with a white Cincinnati Reds hat, white on white. And he also held a bat in his hands for the entire program, which lasted more than 90 minutes.
Well, Pete always had a bat in his hand. I guess that's where he's most comfortable. But we've discussed this, and I think we both believe that he should be in the Hall of Fame. And I know some of these guys just looking at a thing now that says Tommy Lasorda and Goose Gossage say he should be out of. He shouldn't be allowed in the Hall of Fame. I think that's a little ridiculous. But let's face it. If Lasorda didn't manage and have those great teams, he wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. So sometimes I think you just got to keep your mouth shut. And I don't know. He did it on the field. That's what you should be going into the Hall of Fame for.
Struggle against the world.
That's for sure. I agree with you 100%. He also added that he would take to his grave about his betting. He said, "I'll take that to my grave." So he's very serious about it, and he's very sorry about it. Asked what he would say to a commissioner of baseball if he ran into him on game night. He would just say he was sorry. So that's about as sincere as he could be, I think, with something like that. It didn't kill anybody or anything. He violated a rule, but it's been so many years that I think they could well take him back into baseball and not be wrong.
And as you say, Rich, he has apologized now. I mean, what more does he have to do? You take back guys that do drugs, that have done steroids, that have done other types of drugs. They've all been accepted back into the family. They may not have gone into the Hall of Fame, but maybe they weren't Hall of Famers to begin with. I know it's the number one thing, but to me, this is what we've discussed. You have to, they're pushing gambling all the time with this DraftKings, so I think it's a little hypocritical of them if they kept him from baseball. I'm not saying he should be allowed to manage, but he's got to have some place in the game, and I firmly believe he should be in the Hall of Fame. And if Tommy Lasorda doesn't like it and Goose Gossage doesn't like it, well, I'm sure there are other guys in the Hall of Fame that when they got in, they were players from their era that didn't like it as well. So you just grin and bear it. You don't have to show up if you're that ticked off, but then you're disgracing the whole Hall of Fame to me. You're not disgracing it. You're not making a stand. You're just disgracing the whole Hall of Fame if they decide to let somebody in that you don't like.
Yeah, and it's not going to be the worst thing that ever happened with baseball for sure. So we'll have to keep our eye, see what happens with this controversy. It probably won't end in time as the All-Star game ends, but wouldn't it be nice if they announced that, in conjunction with the All-Star game? I think that would be the time to do it.
That would be great. That would be great. In his hometown. That would be terrific. I'm not holding my breath for it, but it would be a great thing.
So that's our coverage of the MLB All-Star Game for the 86th edition. Good luck to both teams. I know who Gary and I are pulling for. We don't want to make any of our listeners upset, but I think we'd rather see the National League win, Gary.
Yeah, Rich, we're National League guys, so I'll be pulling for the National League.
But I love the game myself as well. I just hope for a good game as well.
Yeah, I'd like to see a good game as well.
So can't wait for that. Tuesday night, 8 p.m. on Fox, of course. I'll have my snacks and goodies already. Always try to make it like a festive time of year. And Gary, we're going to move on with the show here, and we have our regular featured stories coming up. You've got a serious story here about Robinson Cano.
Well, he signed that big contract with Seattle Mariners, and he's been having a rough year this year. He's not hitting like his normal self, and it's been revealed that he spoke to Jorge Ortiz in a Spanish-language interview for USA Today, and that he's been battling a stomach problem for almost a year, and the results have been draining. It's some kind of parasite that they have found. They have treated him with antibiotics, but he's left with acid reflux to this day. It affects me, Cano said. Sometimes you drink water and it makes you feel like vomiting. I can't eat the same way I did. It's hard to deal with, especially being the first time that this has happened to me. And sometimes I eat only once a day before playing because I feel full and you just don't have the same energy. He said he was reluctant to speak publicly about it because he didn't want to make excuses, but they think that it could be he was an avid seafood eater, and he may have gotten that. He has since eliminated red meat from his menu because it takes too long to digest, and the acid reflux delays the digestive process. But despite the diet changes and medication, the condition persists. So I don't know. We're just going to have to see where he goes with this energy level. And this is it's something that's very odd, and you don't know if it's because of where he's from, and maybe the food isn't. Who knows where he got this from? I shouldn't say that. But it's really a shame. A very good player, and to be knocked down by something like this.
Yeah, it's a very strange story there. You don't often hear too much of that happen, especially with the major league players. So hopefully they can get down to exactly what caused that. But they do eat out all the time, of course. They're on the road quite a bit, and eating out at restaurants and all. You just never know, especially with seafood sometimes, with things like that.
Yeah, it's very true, Rich, and I guess you just got to be careful and try to stay within what you think you can handle. And unfortunately, now he's got this acid reflux and he can't really eat. So I advise milkshakes, maybe.
Yeah, or
I
something else.
I don't know.
Well, we'll have to see what happens with Robinson Cano. And Gary, speaking of traveling, going across the country all the time, now customers of a certain airline named JetBlue Airways is going to be able to watch live Major League Baseball games as they zip across the Americas at 35,000 feet. JetBlue is not the first airline to offer this. Of course, about 5 years ago, Southwest got in on it. They called their program the 44th row, where they offered customers to purchase games and they could watch them on Southwest flights. But JetBlue has stepped up and now offering free MLB access to flyers that go across the United States now. So just another way to watch a baseball game on traveling, Gary.
That's great. And do you get to select who you watch, or is it just whatever they're showing?
Yeah, I believe it would be on your own streaming device, rather. So you'd have to have either a laptop or tablet with you. But yeah, it would be free to access while in flight any of the games that are currently on MLB.TV. So it's a nice little perk there, and another good reason to maybe fly JetBlue.
JetBlue seems to be doing everything right. I know a couple of people told me it's their most favorite airline, so good for them.
Yep, so it's a great thing there for baseball fans. And Gary, we always take a moment out of the show to thank our listeners for tuning in to MLB This Week. It's the independent show where we bring you what we think are the stories that you should be listening. Maybe you missed them during the week about the game of baseball. You can follow us on Twitter. We're at MLB This Week. Catch us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and also Podomatic.com. And you can also catch us on the home for great baseball talk, and that's BaseballTalkRadio.com.
Yes, BaseballTalkRadio.com. As you said, the home of great baseball talk shows, and there's talk shows and podcasts from every team you can imagine. San Francisco Giants, the New York Mets, the Philadelphia Phillies, Milwaukee Brewers, just so many, fantasy baseball, Japanese baseball, Canadian baseball. So go check it out. It's got so many different teams on it, and Rich does a great job running that. And so check it out, BaseballTalkRadio.com.
Thank you very much, Gary. Glad we have some listeners out there. I know that listen to our show. They might want to tune into these other great shows as well. Gary, you have a great story on one of my favorite actors from the 80s that I remember, Mr. Bill Murray.
Well, Rich, Bill Murray is seen here is a big Chicago Cubs fan and not so big St. Louis Cardinal fan. And he was playing in a John Deere Classic. He's a big golf fan as well. On Wednesday in the Pro-Am, and he was approaching people and asking them if they saw the Cubs sweep the St. Louis Cardinals in a doubleheader Tuesday. One woman behind the rope said she was a Cardinals fan, and Murray said, "Satan's messengers on earth." This is the way he described the Cardinals. And he later went on to say, and then it turns out your team is cheaters too. So Bill Murray does not like the Cardinals, and I knew there was something I liked about Bill Murray, but Cubs fans in general hate the Cardinals. So, but Satan's messengers on earth. I don't know about that's a bit strong, but then again, maybe I'll have to agree with Bill Murray. He knows a little bit more than I do about such things, so I'll go with him on that one.
Bill Murray never one to mince words, but you got to hand it to the Cardinals. They're doing it each year. They switch out guys on the team. They seem to stay on top for the past several years, so you do have to hand it to them for that.
Oh yeah, but in that Midwest there, they do not like the Cubs, do not like the Cardinals, and the Brewers fans do not like the Cubs and the Cardinals. So there's a big rivalry there, and Bill Murray's just a big time Cubs fan, so he's in the middle of it.
Very cool. Well, speaking of players and managers that don't like one another, the other night on July 10th, there was a baseball game, and it was in Alaska, a minor league game, and the game went into the 14th inning there when an argument broke out with between two managers. You can find it on YouTube. After a few words traded back and forth, they decided to trade fists. They broke out into a fight of their own, something you don't see very much often during a game, Gary. But then it was a benches clearing brawl that also ensued, and it was a little bit of mayhem there in Alaska.
Yeah, I saw that video, and the one guy got clocked pretty good there with a big right cross, but wow. I mean, maybe it's the 24-hour daylight up there that gets to you after a while.
Yeah, it seemed to be the 14th inning, but the daylight was still in effect. They were probably both tired, but yeah, it's actually a collegiate baseball league, but yeah, just another reason to watch baseball. But of course, I'm glad nobody got hurt as well.
Yes, but there's always something to see, isn't there?
That's for sure. And speaking of all-stars, Mr. Puig from the LA Dodgers, he's known for some of his eating habits, I've heard.
Well, Rich, at the tail end of Thursday's Phillies-Dodgers game last week, Yasiel Puig had a sudden bout of hunger and tried to make dinner plans with Jimmy Rollins. Jimmy really, according to Vince Scully, Jimmy wasn't really catching up to that, and it looked like he shot Puig's offers down. And there's Puig talking about dinner there, and there's Rollins, I guess, making him out to be Fat Albert or something. Where he was going with that, but it just goes to show you what the heck goes on in a ball game. It's not. We all think they're all standing there and concentrating, but there's a lot of fun going on during the game between the players as well. So just another example of a day at the ballpark.
Yeah, I saw that when it was happening. A little strange there, but then again, so is Puig. So Jimmy Rollins answering there. You don't see that every day on a baseball diamond either.
Oh, no. And Rich, today is a big anniversary, is it not?
Yeah, one of the biggest anniversaries of all in reference to baseball and stadiums that got destroyed from one. This one goes back to 1979 in Chicago's Comiskey Park. There was a program called the Trash Disco Night, or Disco Demolition Night, actually, is what it was billed as. And it offered fans a chance to get into the ball game on July 12th, 1979, with just a record that they could bring in. Back in the day, of course, when they had the long-playing records, you had to bring in a disco record, and you got in for like 92 cents. It was a program that was run in conjunction with a radio station, an FM radio station that played rock music. They expected about 5,000 extra fans to take part of this. By the time the game started, there was a full stadium of about 50,000 people estimated at the game, many of whom snuck into the stadium. They were climbing walls to get in, but a great majority of them also brought their records. So at one point during the evening, these guys were supposed to deposit their records in a giant trash can, and they were going to blow them up between games. It was a twilight doubleheader, and this promotion went horribly wrong. First of all, some of the fans were chucking the records right from their seats onto the field at various times of the game, almost hitting several players. Came dangerously close to that. But between the games, Gary, is when things really got out of hand. A local radio station emceed the whole thing and blew up a whole trash can of records, so much so they went everywhere on the field. Nobody expected the kind of explosion that took place during this game, and that the field was littered with records everywhere. Of course, the fans went crazy after that. They, en masse, started running onto the field. First, it was just one or two, then three, four, then hundreds of fans took to the field, and they wouldn't leave for the start of the second game.
I remember that, and Rich, that was a wild scene, and they blew a hole, not a deep hole, but they blew a hole in the outfield grass, and if I remember correctly, the general manager or one of the front office people had ordered security to watch the gate so people wouldn't sneak in anymore, and there was nobody guarding the field, so all the people in the stands started jumping over the fences and running onto the field, and it was just a mayhem.
Yeah, it was.
And it was just a crazy, crazy thing, and that'll go down as one of the worst, as you say, the ill-conceived promotions of all times, and that's right up there with that 10-cent beer night that they did in Cleveland, I believe it was, and when they had a similar thing occur too. But
yeah.
Go Demolition. That's a great one.
Harry Carey was in attendance for that game. He tried to get the fans off the field to no avail. There was just literally hundreds, if not 1,000 or more fans that just camped out on the field. So game 2 was forfeited to Detroit. The White Sox ended up having to forfeit that game, and you don't see that happening anymore.
No. Well, I think the security is so much better now, and they really, the newer stadiums and stuff are a lot tougher than the older ones. But there you go again. There's another great thing in the history of baseball. That as crazy as it sounds, and as destructive as it was, we're laughing about it now. Nobody got hurt, I don't believe, and it was just a bad promotion.
Yeah, it's very humorous, and I'll post a video of the events of the night up on our website at MLBThisWeek.com under the show notes for show number 56, which is this show. You can check it out for yourself. And Gary, you have our final story of the night here, and it sounds like a pretty humorous one as well.
Well, rain delays generally aren't a lot of fun for most fans. You're sitting in the audience and you're getting wet, and it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's cool unless it's a real hot night. But, the players, too, are just sitting around and doing nothing. But during the 36-minute delay in Thursday's Cardinals-Pirates game, Psy's Gangnam Style began playing throughout PNC Park, And South Korean shortstop Jung Ho Kang, well, he knew just what to do. So he was entertaining his fellow Pirates in the dugout as he was doing the dance there from Gangnam Style and having a good old time. So nice to see the players relax and have a little fun. And, he wasn't sliding around on the tarp like they used to in Baltimore years ago. Rick Dempsey was big on that. But he was doing a little Gangnam Style dance there in the dugout, and the other players seemed to enjoy it. So good for him. Keep those guys loose. The second half is coming, boys.
Yep, they all had smiles on their face for that one. Of course, Pittsburgh doing well. They've turned things around. They won a game the other night on a McCutcheon home run in extra innings. And, hey, I think we might see them in the playoffs this year as well, Gary.
It's going to be interesting because the Cardinals had that big lead, Rich, and now, if I'm not mistaken, it's down to 3.5 games or so, and I believe they're playing on the ESPN game tonight, so they could pull within, let's see, I'm just trying to look it up now. Yeah, 3.5 the Pirates are, and they could pull within 2.5 with a victory tonight, so things are tightening up. We thought for a while there that was going to be the division. They had a big lead. The Cardinals did, and they're giving it back now, and the Pirates are right there, and the Cubbies are still in the race and in a wild card race as well. And Washington hasn't run away with anything. The Mets are still there, and the American League East is still up for grabs as the Yankees and the Rays are battling it out, and the Orioles got up there and it slid back a little bit. So the Royals, and how about those Minnesota Twins, Rich? They're still hanging in there, 4.5 games behind the Royals, and they just did a number on the Tigers over the weekend.
Yeah, it's amazing. Looking forward to the second half. As you said, Gary, it's been a very exciting time for a lot of these baseball teams, some of which weren't expected to do much. And even in the American League East, a lot of the teams are still all in it, including Toronto, some teams that were expected to do well over the years but haven't. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the start of the second half here. And, of course, the hot stove will be heating up soon with the end of the month coming up and the trade deadline as well.
Wow, that's going to be fascinating. Because there's still a lot of people in this race, and who's going to decide to go for it? Who's going to decide to sell? Right now the biggest sellers I could see were probably going to be the Phillies, the Padres, and the Brewers so far. But who knows who else? I mean, everybody else is going to be buying, I think, from that. Other than that combination of teams, everybody else seems to be really in it yet, so who knows?
Yep, so we'll keep our eyes on things for you here on the program, and we thank you again for listening. If you have a chance, head on over to our Patreon page. You can find a link right on our website. You can sponsor our show with just a small donation of up to a cup of coffee a month donation for this show. We appreciate it if you could sign up for that. And thank you for listening to the first half of programs here on MLB This Week.
And we'll see you again the next time.